Okay, let me get this started again. I'm talking with Bill Piper of drugpolicy.org. So we agree that the way to do really the way to do this is just decriminalize these laws and let free commerce reign. Protect our borders so we can go to the border and trade. My God, I mean, if I can trade for something of value in Mexico across the border at a flea market or something like that, I think that'd be the way to go. And if that way, and if they grow good Oaxacan down there and they want to trade it for some California cannabis, that's free trade. That shouldn't be something that anybody ought to go to jail for.
Mm-hmm.
What is the
very
prospect?
least you should stop criminalizing people for what they put, into their body. And the thing about prohibition is it creates these very lucrative markets. And because marijuana is illegal, we're basically transferring billions of dollars a year to the Mexican drug cartels, which Al Capone would probably be afraid of the cartels because of their level of violence. And if we just legalized it, we could put the criminals out of business and save a crap load of taxpayer money.
If the criminals own the politicians, if the criminals are giving them the money to continue their campaigns and giving them the publicity, if the criminals own the newspapers, what chance do we have here?
Well, I think the chance we have is that more and more Americans are realizing that we need to end the war on drugs generally and the war on marijuana specifically. And a lot of that has to do with, the public education. And, your show is helping, and, there's other shows, and there's lots of organizations, whether it's the Drug Policy Alliance or Normal, or there's just a lot of organizations working, and more Americans are waking up, and we'll eventually reach the point in which we have enough Americans on our side that we're just going to end the war on drugs and put, on the one hand, we're going to put the drug dealers and the criminals out of business, but on the other hand, we're going to also put the prison guards and the narcotics officers out of business, and we're going to save a lot of taxpayer money, and at the same time reduce crime and reduce the number of people in prison. So I'm actually pretty optimistic. Like, I think we're, I've been doing this for more than a decade. You've been doing this for obviously several decades, but I'm super optimistic about how close we are to actually ending the war on drugs. I mean, it's not going to happen literally tomorrow, but everything is moving in the right direction.
Well, it's interesting that I wrote about this 40 years ago. I'm going back now for the first time in 40 years. I've got the first novel that I wrote up on the computer, so I'm able to edit it. But so far, the only editing that I've done is that 40 years ago I didn't foresee computers, and all I had offices staffed with was IBM Selectric typewriters. So, but the novel 40 years ago, it was a hippie novel, but it was right on. Again, I can't find any places to edit other than a few small details. So that'll be coming back out again. But they do try to limit me. I mean, if you go to a library and take your computer in a library and try to get the Free American, they'll try to tell you it's a porno site. So there is some suppression here, and my magazines. By the way, but again, talking about hope, we do have a candidate running for president that supports exactly what we're talking about, the legalization of drugs in America. And that would be Gary Johnson, Governor Gary Johnson. Now, one of the ways...
Yeah, Gary Johnson's good, Ron Paul is good. We at least have, a couple candidates who are talking about this. And Gary Johnson as governor was great. He was talking about it as governor, so he's
Yeah, the ADL tries to tell everybody, and I got $1 million worth of publicity. It was all, they tried to do it negatively. You know, Clay Douglas started the militias. You're damn right I did. What they don't tell you is that I started it in the governor's office. We worked for the governor. No terrorist group, didn't blow up Oklahoma City. That was a BATF. Same ones that are running the guns down to the Mexican drug cartels to kill our Border Patrol agents. Maybe all that's just coincidence, huh? Now, how can people help? What can we do? I mean, other than try to get the information out, and this is why I started the Free American. After what happened at Waco, you know, the mainstream press was trying to convince you, well, the government had to do that to save those 17 little children from child molesters. You know, didn't work for me. Didn't you know, how could Americans buy that? I don't know. But what can Americans do today? How can we get involved? A lot of times the opposition, so-called opposition, is controlled opposition, and maybe we're making some headway with these Occupy Wall Street movements because they're making the bankers' position a little bit better known to the American people. But on the other hand, they're setting the American people against the police into an us and them type situation. I think that's dangerous. I mean, we ought to be working together with the sheriffs or with the police, you know, and arresting the right people instead of letting them make more criminals out of the people that are simply walking down like, you know, walking down Wall Street with a bunch of people, and suddenly they're arrested, they're thrown in jail because of what? What can the American people do? What are we doing? What are we doing right? What do we need to do?
Well, I think first of all, people should join a drug policy reform organization. Like, they could join the Drug Policy Alliance, for instance, or at the very least get on our email list so that they can write to members of Congress at a key point. There's also lots of other organizations, you know, that people can join. They can join NORML, they can join Marijuana Policy Project, or MAPS, or Students for Sensible Drug Policy. They can also join, and I like that you mentioned the need to work with law enforcement, because one of my favorite organizations is Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, or LEAP, because there's more and more law enforcement officers, you know, who are waking up and realizing that, you know, they're arresting the American people day after day, and they're tired of it, and, you know, they're on the front lines, and so they realize that they're, you know, every day risking their lives to stop people from using marijuana or other drugs, and, you know, this prohibition just creates this climate in which they're going to get shot at, or the partners are going to get shot at, you know, all to stop something that, you know, that would have been legal, you know, 50 years ago or whatever, and, you know, it's just not worth it. So I think joining an organization is helpful. People can also write their members of Congress or the local legislators, and I think that really helps. And even if the member of Congress is like, I support the war on drugs, they at least need to hear from the constituents. And if they never hear, if members of Congress never hear from people who oppose, you know, the war on marijuana, they're never going to change. And so those are, I think, joining an organization and contacting elected officials go, I think, a long way to...
Well, I'll tell you what, I would like to put, I do have your link up here to the drugpolicy.org. The links are up on the website. If they click on your name, they'll hear this show. If they click on the other one, they'll go right to your site. And I'm just looking up here, the Gallup poll, support for legalizing marijuana reaches historic threshold. 50% of Americans favor ending marijuana prohibition. And this is the first time a Gallup poll has found that 50% of Americans support making marijuana legal. So we are...
It was just 46% last year, so it jumped 4% in 1 year. That's why I think that we're very, very close because support is rising very quickly.
Yeah, right. If you can link to the Free American website, we'll continue to get this information out. I continue to support the Oath Keepers. I have pretty much declared war on the whole pharmaceutical industry because they're making insane profits and they're drugging Americans. When I got out of the hospital after being drugged for 3 months for 3 broken ribs, I was told, my family was told, make sure he takes this medication, make sure he does this, make sure he does that. My response was, the only thing I need is a joint and a Harley, and I'm not taking any more medication. And I've never taken any more medication since I got out of the hospital. And I'm pretty clear in my thoughts. I'm pretty clear in my actions. I'm pretty healthy for what I've been through. And I've been in the battle for a long time. I helped Keith Stroop promote NORML. I welcomed High Times to the industry with Solomon's Herald, and I was the first distributor in Texas for High Times. You know, I helped support Jack Hara while he was writing Emperor Wears No Clothes. My friend Clark Jones did the editing, first editing on his book. And, you know, so much for all you folks out there that want the ADL that want to try to make me out to be anti-Semitic. You know, Aaron Russo was a friend. And Jack Hara was a great man. So we do need to work together. And I've got a plan on my website for something called Liberty Villages. And the Liberty Villages would work optimally if our farms were allowed to grow hemp again. And that's just part of the benefits of the whole legalization or decriminalization. You know, I mean, the Bible said that God gave us every plant on earth, and they talked about a plant of renown. In my opinion, that's cannabis. So,
yeah,
it's what can we do in our local thing? I mean, what I'm trying to do here with the support of the sheriff here. The sheriff is the highest law enforcement. He can kick the feds out, and you know you still got problems with the feds interfering in California. Although the people voted for this, and they're still going after some of the growers and some of the clinics, aren't they? On the federal level.
They're still going after the growers and the clinics in California. They've done some recent raids in Colorado and Montana. And it's probably getting worse. And so definitely people should try to get local law enforcement to not cooperate. I think that's a good first step. At the very least, I mean, if the feds are either going to come in or they're not going to come in. At the very least, they shouldn't come in with the assistance of the local sheriff. So if the local sheriff say we're not going to be involved in this, that's a good first step. Because the federal government can't be everywhere, and so they rely on local law enforcement, and local law enforcement shouldn't cooperate.
I agree with that. I will urge the sheriffs that we're working on to state that and make that real. You know, we've got to. This legislation that Barney Frank has introduced. You've got links for that up on your site, don't you?
Yeah, I think we have some action alerts. We're about to send out an action alert, but it's HR 2306, and it's a good bill. It ends federal marijuana prohibition. It lets states set their own marijuana policies, and it pretty much says unless someone is taking marijuana from one state to another, it's none of the federal government's business. And it's modeled after the repeal of alcohol prohibition. It would really go a long way to getting us out of this mess. And it protects California and Colorado and Montana and all the other states that have set their own marijuana policies. And if it passed, I think we'd see a lot more states in the war on marijuana because they wouldn't have to worry about the federal government coming in.
Do you do you see this getting worse before it gets better? I mean, generally, you know, the people, if they're leaving them alone and they're not being affected by this, people don't want to hear about it, don't want to get behind any causes, and I just don't want to call attention to myself. I just want to stay below the radar. And you know, I was told here at the Breakfast Club, oh, Clay, you just do so much better if you just didn't talk about Jews or you didn't talk about marijuana. I said, it's on the ballot. Marijuana is on the ballot here in Arizona. Why wouldn't I talk about it?
Yeah, and you definitely should talk about it. And, you know, when people say that to me, you know, I say, you know, this is about marijuana, but it's also not about marijuana. That, you know, this really is about, it's about civil liberties and property rights and wasted tax dollars and all these things. So even people who don't use marijuana should be concerned because, you know, the government's using a lot of taxpayer money to track people down and put them in jail. And, you know, you have these no-knock raids in which, you know, law enforcement dresses up in Kevlar vests and machine guns and knocks down people's doors. And a lot of times they get the wrong house. And so, you know, they'll mean to hit one address and they'll get the wrong address and they'll just knock down the door. And, you know, the first thing they do if they get inside and there's a dog is they shoot the dog. And so there's a lot of innocent victims in all of this. And so everyone should be concerned. And we have to talk about this because it's such a really big issue.
We had the exact thing happen here. A woman looks out her window. She sees guys with guns walking in her front yard. She wakes her husband up, an Iraqi vet. He walks down the hallway with his rifle in his hand. The safety's still on. They kicked down the door and shot him 60 some odd times.
Yeah, I mean, I read about that. It's such a tragic story, and it happens a lot. I mean, you see these people who, and because the police just knock it down, and you don't know what's going on. A lot of times they do it in the middle of the night, so you're half asleep, and you obviously reach for your gun because why wouldn't you? Because you don't know what's going on, and all you know is that there's strange people in your house, and you don't realize it's police officers, and the next thing you know, you're dead. They've shot you. Or, you know, some cases in which they've knocked down the door of the wrong address, and it's of an elderly person, and they have a heart attack. They're so scared that they have a heart attack and die. So you know, there's all these tragic stories, and it's happening more and more. And the police are getting increasingly militarized. This is a whole other story for a whole other show. But the police, the Pentagon gives away a significant number of its weapons that it no longer needs to local law enforcement. And so you have all these law enforcement that have high-powered weapons, including some cities' tanks. But you know, everyone should be concerned about whether they use marijuana or don't use marijuana, and that's why it's so important to talk about this stuff. That it's not just about marijuana. Like all the civil liberties that we're giving up to wage the war on marijuana, those civil liberties are everybody's civil liberties, and we're losing them.
That's right. It is really it's a little bit more of a desperate situation than most people are aware of. I've been watching this war on drugs escalate and take part. I mean, I got involved in this because I couldn't see how anybody in their right mind would want the most productive plant on earth kept illegal, kept from the American people. I mean, it was stolen for us, and Jack Herod did a wonderful job of chronicling that theft in Emperor Wears No Clothes. I've sold his book for years, and I really miss him. But he woke up a ton of people. He woke up a ton of people. You're waking up a ton of people. I'd like to have you on my show on a regular basis. I'd like to be able to promote this. I'd like for you to be able to tell your audience about this. You know, I do not get focused on one issue because so many of these issues are tied in. The BATF, the CIA, the drug smuggling, the Amina, Arkansas, you know, it's, and how much are the banks making off of this illegal substance here? They're laundering the money. They found billions of dollars flowing through Wells Fargo, Wachovia, haven't they?
Oh, unquestionably, there's an enormous amount of money flowing through the banks that they profit off of. You know, like, if you go down to Miami, like, South Beach was a complete shithole until all the drug money started coming in. And a lot of people get rich off of that, and the banks still get a lot of money from it.
Yeah, I made movies down there on the South Beach with Sylvester Stallone. I was the biker that walked behind him. I was the specialist. All right. Listen, I really appreciate you being on my show, Bill Piper, drugpolicy.org. And if you can let people know about this show on your list, we can build our audience, we can build our reach, and you know, we can support Gary Johnson, we can support your organization, and we're trying to get the correct information out there. And they're scared of that. They're scared of people being self-sufficient. They're afraid of us having a self-sufficient economy. And the basis of every civilization, folks, is a self-sufficient family farm. Family farms are to be growing hemp, one of the most valuable products in the world. And if you want to smoke it, well, you can do that too. Cheers.
Thanks.
Thank you, Bill. God bless you.
All right, thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Call recording has been completed.
All right, Jake, I've got you down for October 27th. October 27th. I got Gilad Oxman coming on Monday.
Slowly falling apart at the seams. In my dreams I had a purpose, a mission, a goal, but I just couldn't get control. I heard your voice on the phone and found I wasn't alone anymore, that a door had been opened that I didn't see. How could this happen to me? We can do this together, we don't have to be alone. We're two birds of a feather, we can make us a home. we both had enough of the fight. Day and night we fight the battle. The burden is great. It's not right to shoulder so much weight. Sometimes I haven't been fair. Sometimes it seems I don't care, but I do. Yes, it's you that's held together everything that we've done. I know that you're the only one. Yes, we can do this together. We don't have to be alone. We're two birds of a feather. We can make this our home. We both want the truth, and we know in our hearts the sum is greater than its parts. Yes, we can do this together. We don't have to be alone. We're two birds of a feather, and we've made this our home. We both stand for truth, and we know in our hearts the sum is greater than its parts. The sum is greater than its parts. The sum is greater than its parts. I had a pain in my heart, was slowly falling apart at the seams. In my dreams I had a purpose, a mission, a goal, but I just couldn't get control. I heard your voice on the phone and found I wasn't alone anymore, that a door had been opened that I didn't see. How could this happen to me? We can do this together. We don't have to be alone. We're two birds of a feather. We can make this our home. We both want the truth, and we know in our hearts the sun is greater than its parts. And then the going got tough. We thought we both had enough of the fight. Day and night we fight the battle. The burden is great. It's not right to shoulder so much weight. Sometimes I haven't been fair. Sometimes it seems I don't care, but I do. Yes, it's you that's held together everything that we've done. I know that you're the only